I think that's probably, I'd like to think that's probably like outside the factory or like in the town to make just to make themselves more noticeable and to show as many people that they are on strike, which will get the message around quicker. And it affects the factory girls movement and also the men's movement at the end, because they know they're going to be seen and they need to make as much kind of noise and meaning as possible, which is why they show in their facial expressions that they're almost, there's like not anger but kind of like fire, because they're so determined that nothing that they can think of is gonna distract them at all, and that's why they look determined even when they're going round in circles, because they know exactly what they're going to do and how to do it. So they kind of need to walk with like purpose, and I think they do that, and because they understand the meaning of like what the strike meant to the factory girls in the 60s. Like, I think that's definitely helped their movement and their characters a lot. Describe how your character feels within the scene. How do you show this in your movement? For example, how does this affect your facial expressions and dynamics of the movement? Well, as I've said before, I'm really angry at Hopkins because he takes the phone off me, and also, well, I'm irritated at that point, and then irritation turns to anger when he asks me what time is it in America, because he kind of wants to ring Tooley up, but I'm get really angry because obviously I don't know, and he expects me to know little questions like that, but not ask me on important questions about the factory. So obviously I raise my voice when I say I'm not the speaking clock, and obviously that's really that's different to how I start the scene off when I pick the phone up and go Lise Hopkins, because it's meant to be really pleasant, because I think the phone call is for me. And obviously when I say I'm not the speaking clock, I want to make I want to almost make a statement and show that I'm annoyed with him, so I walk off in a huff, and I kind of it's kind of a and so I walk off with my arms crossed and kind of a frown on my face. Describe 3 points in your dance which are good and explain why they are effective. I think at the start of Everybody Out, when Rita, just before Rita asks who wants to go on strike, and then the music the kind of iconic music starts, and the girls slowly put their hand up, and they put their hands up at different times. So there's a beat, and then a handful of girls put their hand up, and then another beat, and then the next few girls put their hand up. So it's really well structured, and I think it's really effective because obviously the movement is the like hand gestures are really clear and fit with the music, and it just shows that as like they're a bit unsure to start with, which is why only some girls put their hands up at the start, and then they all start to see why the strike is so important, and why it's necessary to do it. And then as soon as everyone puts their hand up, they kind of like spring into action. So I think the start is really effective. I also think, as I've said before, when they walk up to the audience and they link arms, and they're in a long line, it just shows that like kind of shows that like you can't really get through them without listening to them, and that's what they want. They want people to listen. and they want people to reason with them and see why they're doing it. And it just shows that like their almost friendship between them all are really strong, and it's pretty hard to like stop that when they're this determined, because they've been going through for so many years with unequal pay that they're all so fed up with it, and so they've decided to like link up together to show that they're not going to be messed with. I also think at the end when even the men kind of come together with the women and they're kind of walking around in circles, while Monty and some of his colleagues are looking down a little bit worried, as well as Mr. Hopkins walking on with his briefcase to obviously act as if he's seen kind of an empty an empty factory, or he's actually seeing them protesting, and that's making him really worried because he doesn't really want to call Tooley and say that there's some kind of mistake, or there's some they don't know how to deal with the situation. And so both Monty and Hopkins like fear that this strike will actually work, and because they have no ideas at this point, because everyone else looks so determined and they're forming together as a unit. Target 3 areas of the dance which need improving. For example, timing, facial expression and dynamics. List and describe the moments you need to work on and film yourself improving these areas. The first one could be that when the main girls are talking to the Liverpool girls about the strike, instead of the Liverpool girls just staring blankly at them, they could maybe look at each other and see for themselves if their colleagues kind of want to do it or not. They're a little bit unsure because this is all a bit this question is like sprung on them, and then they could start to warm up to the idea and see from their point of view that again unequal pay is like unacceptable, and they want to be respected just as much as men, and they want their job to be skilled. So maybe kind of like some interaction between them before they decide that it's a good idea could make it like a little bit more realistic. I need to practice walking in heels with a straight with a straight back and pushed back shoulders, because I've not walked in heels for a long time. So and I need to make sure that my posture is still really good with heels on, and so I need to practice walking on and off with heels, because I don't want it to look like I've just slipped them on after about 10 years. I need to make sure that I'm really comfortable in them, so that I'm confident with walking on and off during the song, and so that I'm not really stompy. I'm still quite elegant, even though I'm quite annoyed at Miss Hopkins. The third area for improvement could be that during the start of the song, after they've just all put their hands up, there could be like a bit more interaction between them. They could have their own conversations, even pretend conversations, even when Rita's speaking, and they could look a little bit more excited before they kind of link arms and stand together, just to kind of maybe show like some groups that they're in, because they wouldn't just be like one group. Realistically, they'd probably cut off into small groups, and if they have that little bit of interaction, it shows the audience that they've been together for such a long time, and then they finally come together as a whole unit. So maybe just some pretend conversations between each other, which won't which doesn't just kind of add to the realism, but also kind of adds some dynamics to the song and shows that they're all kind of they their friendship is really strong and they've been together for so long.